This is HBR News number 537. What is SignalGate? A new day for women, where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you're laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I'm your host, Brian. I'm joined by, as always, my lovely co-hosts, Hannah Wallen and Dr. Randercam.
Hello.
Yes, hello, Mike. I just want to point out the title. Those two things are not related. Those are two separate stories. But it does sound like they're basically related. I mean, they kind of are, too.
Well, you know what happens when there's a new day for women? They find some reason to bitch about it.
Well, this week, guys, it's going to be a packed show. I had to leave some things out. We will be talking about the latest breaking news in Minnesota regarding this leaked Signal chat. Scientists have possibly created a way to make eggs without the need for women. An all-trans Stepford Wives movie is in development and more, so stick around. It's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. So you guys know that there's this trend or this thing going around called looks maxing. I know it kind of came out of... I think it kind of came out of the incel community.
Yeah.
But like new. It's kind of going mainstream. I mean, when the Guardian picks it up, you know it's mainstream, right?
Yeah, it's not new.
Yeah, it's not. No, it's not a new really thing. Not. But as usual,
the Guardian is uncharacteristically making a good point. I mean, it came out from Clavicula, this fucking Mossad agent. Yes, I'm going with that. He came out of nowhere, and now he's suddenly a celebrity. There's some shenanigans going on there. But yeah. This Dave Schilling bloke is saying being uglier is a lot easier. And yeah, it is a lot easier than hitting yourself with a hammer. It's got to be said. I mean, girls don't even like looks as much as boys do. They like money. So fucking put the hammer down and, fucking...
Well, we're going to be looking at this article
or hammer some fucking nails with it and get a job.
Yeah.
Honestly, the biggest problem is that women are all around way, way more judgmental than men when it comes to their partners.
Yeah.
Women will bitch about any little thing. Men tolerate all of the little things and don't complain until stuff is really bad, and then they get treated like they're being emotionally abusive for defending what little space they have in the relationship. I would not want to be the man in a relationship, even with me.
So the patron show is this article from The Guardian. Looks maxing young men are carving up their faces. Being ugly is a lot easier. We're going to be looking at this potentially actually like decent article from The Guardian that I think pigs are flying, but there's probably something misandrist inside the article if we read it. So I'm guessing that it's going to be like some kind of other subversion, another layer of it. But we're going to be looking at this in the patron show. If you guys want to join us for that, you have to become a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com/subscribe and starting a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into our Discord server where you'll be able to watch all of the additional content and even hang out with us and chat with us yourselves and give us your 2 cents, because all of our 2 cents are worth the same, which is almost nothing. But at least we all have it. And if we put all of our 2 cents together, we might be able to buy, like a lollipop at the corner store. But anyway, and if you don't want to wake up one morning to find it.
Now that the penny has been discontinued, we could start earning a little more with our 2 cents.
And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we've been yeeted from the internet, go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com to find all of our archived content, because that is where, in fact, it lives. And let me see here. Before we let's get into today's stories. But before we do, unfortunately, there is no... what's the word I'm looking for? There's no vertical chat today, and the reason is because there was an update on my software to stream, and it all just disappeared. Like it was all gone, and I guess I have to figure out something else. So anyway, we're gonna get into today's stories. So
that's always fun.
Huh?
This works. This works. Therefore, we need to fix it.
Yeah. Well, it's a plugin that I use, and the company that made, or the people who made the plugin, decided they're going to do some overhaul on the plugin, but it's no longer the same plugin. It's like a whole overhaul plugin, like
Yeah.
a mod for it instead. And I guess they just removed the old plugin and replaced it with this thing. And I didn't realize it until I opened OBS, and then I was like, oh, so I can't. I don't have time to like set it up. But anyway.
Yeah.
So with all that said, let us get into today's stories. We're going to be talking about SignalGate. And I got quite a bit. It's a lot, so I'm going to have to go through quite a bit here to look at this. So the story behind SignalGate. So what is SignalGate? And what's the story? Refers to a controversy exposed just this past week involving leaked encrypted chats from a messaging app called Signal. I don't know if any of you guys ever use Signal. I guess it's like WhatsApp or Skype or something.
No,
I'm
but
not
a
really
lot
sure.
of government officials use it, and this seems like it's SignalGate 2 because we were talking about a different SignalGate earlier this last month.
Yeah. So okay. So there were leaked encrypted chats from the Signal messaging app used by far-left activist networks in Minneapolis, Minnesota to coordinate efforts to track, obstruct, and protest against U.S. immigration and customs enforcement operations, or ICE operations. These chats were infiltrated and leaked by independent journalist Cam Higbee, revealing organized activities that are described as a low-level insurgency against federal immigration enforcement under the current administration. The scandal emerged amid escalating tensions in Minnesota over mass deportation policies that were voted for by American citizens. Activists were reportedly mobilizing to shadow ICE agents, block vehicles, and disrupt arrests of undocumented immigrants. A key incident tied to this was the shooting death of activist Alex Pretty, I'm not really sure how you say it, in
They
Minneapolis.
keep calling him pretty, but apparently CNN doesn't find him pretty enough, so they have to
Yeah, right.
prop him up with some fucking AI. Yeah.
Cleaned it up real nice. In Minneapolis, who confronted ICE agents during an operation. Leaked chats suggest he and others were actively involved in these obstruction efforts. The leaks show structured roles like admins and dispatchers in the chats, with discussions about real-time tracking of ICE movements. This is distinct from an earlier SignalGate in March 2025, which is, I think, the one you're talking about, Hannah.
We've been talking about, yeah.
Which involved Trump administration officials like Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, J.D. Vance, and others using Signal for sensitive discussions on military strikes, violating federal records policies. That one led to lawsuits and investigations, but isn't connected to the Minnesota events. Who is implicated? The leaks point to a network of activists with potential ties to Democratic officials in Minnesota. Here's a breakdown based on reports. So we have Cam Higbee, who is an independent journalist and political researcher. He's the guy who infiltrated and leaked all these chats, and you can find all of his posts on X, where he's sharing. He shared all this news basically. He described the groups as highly organized for anti-ICE actions. Alex Pretty was also one of the people, was also one of the people involved. And he was the guy who was killed in a confrontation with ICE, which I did not make a story because I think that you can get too caught up in every little interaction. And the truth is that
there's going to be one of these every week, isn't
yeah,
there?
exactly. The truth is that ICE is operating all over the country. In most states, the governments are working with them to get this done. And in Minnesota in particular, but also blue areas like Chicago, California, New York, they're doing everything they can to disrupt and oppose ICE and basically make their jobs as hard as possible. So when you have that, then you have a higher likelihood of confrontations and escalations and arrests of people who are not, illegals that are not there specifically to get arrested. And the media is in a feeding frenzy over all of those incidents. So I think that to talk about every single time there's a confrontation or altercation, especially because it's outside of this wider context of Essentially, this is a thing happening across the country, but it's only creating problems in cities like Minneapolis, which also happens to be under investigation for billions of dollars in fraud. But those things are probably not related. But anyway, so that's why I'm not talking about the Preddy shooting in this show, and I think it's basically like open and shut anyway. But anyway, all right. Chat suggests he was actively participating in tracking ICE, had prior altercations with agents. Then you have Amanda Kohler, former campaign advisor to Governor Tim Walz. I believe that's the woman on the thumbnail. What?
Yeah, that's the biggest red
the
flag
row,
right there, isn't there?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? Identified as an admin or dispatcher in the chat, so somebody of higher rank within their little chat hierarchy, which is weird because I thought these people didn't believe in hierarchy, but okay. At least 2 unnamed Minnesota state officials, Democratic politicians in Minnesota, allegedly admins in the chats that have ties to state government, Katie Wilson and Bob Ferguson, mention related posts, which Wilson is possibly Minnesota related. Ferguson is Washington AG, so that's like Attorney General, linked to anti-ICE insurgency chats, though Ferguson is from Washington State. So like this is obviously not limited to Minnesota. This is like all over the country, and they're all talking to each other. And there are broader activist groups, far left groups in Minneapolis, organized obstruction, including real-time databases and mobilization. And the FBI is announcing an investigation into the chats for potential federal obstruction and risk to law enforcement. More than that, though, Tom Homan, the border czar, proposed a public database to make them famous by exposing participants' identities to employees and communities. And if I am correct on this, Tom Homan is in Minneapolis or on his way to Minneapolis. I think he's there, though. And he's basically looking into this. What does this mean for Minnesota?
Tom, do it.
Yeah, do it. What does this mean for Minnesota and the involved government? This scandal has amplified chaos in Minnesota amid Trump's deportation push, leading to protests, violence, and political fallout for Minnesota's situation. It highlights organized resistance to ICE, contributing to incidents like Preddy's death and ongoing unrest in Minneapolis. Border Control Chief Greg Bovino and some agents are leaving the state, citing risks. Governor Tim Walz, after initially resisting, is supposedly now cooperating, following a call from Trump deploying local police to support ICE and avert federal takeover. This has drawn criticism from Democrats like Senator Patty Murray, who praised pushback against ICE. It also ties into prior Minnesota scandals like the $1 billion fraud scheme enabled by lax oversight under Walz, where DEI fears allegedly stifled investigations. For the government involved, federally, it underscores challenges in enforcing deportations, with the FBI probing for systematic organization behind the riots. It could lead to charges for obstruction or conspiracy. Broader resistance is emerging, like California Democrats proposing bills to limit state cooperation with ICE in response to the Minneapolis events. And critics argue it exposes a collapse of leadership in blue states, while supporters see it as valid protests against aggressive policies. Overall, it risks escalating state-federal conflicts with potential for more investigations and policy clashes. And I just wanted to add to, like, before I give it to you guys to comment on. I should open up the Discord because I want to make sure I can get the super chows. I forgot to do that. So like Tom Homan is down there right now. And the other thing is that Keith Ellison could also be implicated. He was like the what do they call him there? The district attorney, the DA.
For the state level? Or
for the state,
local
yes.
level?
Yes. He's the guy who basically like made sure that Jarek Chauvin went to jail. These are all people that were holdovers from the George Floyd stuff as well, because it's the same state. What?
If he's for the state level, that's the attorney general. If he's for the local level, then it's district attorney.
Oh, I have to look it up. Keith Ellison. I think he might be district attorney. It's
been a while. I don't remember either.
It doesn't matter
whether he was a small fry or a big fry.
Yeah. I'm looking to see what he is. He's the attorney general of Minnesota.
Okay, yeah, he's a big fry.
He's a big fry.
Attorney genital.
Attorney genital, yeah.
I love our chat.
So the other thing too is that today, after I did this write-up, I didn't watch it until after. James O'Keefe and the O'Keefe Media Group, and they're these like kind of like guerrilla journalist guys. They go undercover. They do a lot of really good exposing of various things. Like they exposed, the agendas at Disney and all this other stuff. And they went to Minnesota, and when they were there, they were just kind of like hanging out with the protesters, and he tried to blend in. And he, got a sense for what kind of people they were, mostly women, and that's kind of like one of the things that I think makes this conversation interesting. And it's always women, so it's not like we're exposing something new, but it's almost always that, and they're like true believers. And that was one thing that he discovered, is that like, well, most of the people out here are true believers. Like they really think they're doing, something like good, and that they're fighting against evil, and it's a lot of women out there. But one thing that happened that he thought was really interesting, that I've been trying to communicate, is that he decided to come out and tell them that he was press, okay, and that he has no political agenda other than what the truth is, and they confirmed that he was apolitical, right? Because I mean, despite the fact that the stuff that James O'Keefe exposes tends to be like against the left, he's never taken a political stance. He's only ever done his journalism and stayed very focused on that. So when the protesters, the mob that he was hanging around with, discovered that he was apolitical, so they were like, this guy does not have a political leaning, he became their enemy. He even said that. He said, I thought that was a good thing, and it's not. And they were throwing ice bricks and like frozen, like bottles of water, but frozen ones, because it's like 15 below up there. It's in Minneapolis, right? Yeah. And he had to like run to his car, and they were like one of his security guards got hit in the back of the neck with an ice brick, basically. And I want to point that out, because there's no neutrality, guys. There isn't. It doesn't exist. And I need you to understand this, okay? These people have created a line in the sand, and if you're not on their side, you're the enemy. It doesn't matter how centrist you are. It doesn't matter how moderate you are. It doesn't matter. So you have to like understand that. I'm not saying you have to pick a side, but understand that if you're not on their side, you're their enemy, and that's what they're doing. And it is a woman thing. But anyway, so right now things are ongoing. No arrests have been made yet on this particular front. Some people, by the way, that protested the church have been arrested, or at least charged with a crime. That doesn't mean that they're convicted of anything. I get that. These things take time. But in this case, we're just learning about this Signal chat thing. It's blowing up everywhere. So anyway, I give it to you guys.
Well, there could be arrests. There could be depending on the degree of violence individuals can be proved to have engaged in. U.S. Code, Statute 111 makes it a federal crime to forcibly assault, resist, impede, oppose, intimidate, or interfere with a federal officer or employee while they are engaged in or on account of the performance of their official duties. And it doesn't matter whether you do that to ICE, the tax man, or some dipshit who is just measuring whether your fence is on your property or the next person. I don't even think that's federal, but the least or the greatest of federal employees, it doesn't matter. The person that writes the Dear Colleague letter, if you were to engage in a harassment campaign like they've been doing to ICE against any other federal employee, or any federal employee during a Democrat administration, you would have seen mass arrests. And if you commit minor violence, even minor violence carries a misdemeanor class A, punishable by up to a year in prison and fines up to $100,000. It gets longer after that. So essentially, that's just with no physical contact. You show up with a gun like the one guy did. You take a pass at somebody with your car and don't even hit them. You've already committed enough of a crime. No physical contact to go to prison for a year. You do engage in any kind of physical contact, you fire a weapon at somebody, you throw a brick at somebody and hit them, you punch, you grab, you do any of those things, right? And then it goes up to felony assault or aggravated felony. And at that point, you're looking at 8 to 20 years and up to $250,000 in fines. So this isn't a minor thing. This isn't something that, they're like not messing around. They're not fucking around. They're actually putting themselves in a great deal of finding out danger. And that's one law they're violating. They could be arrested for obstructing justice, because this is considered the due administration of justice. When ICE shows up to take out somebody that is here illegally and take them out of the country, deport them from the country, if you interfere with that, you are engaging in obstructing, and that can be the secondary crime that takes your simple assault and makes it felony. Because if you engage in or intend to commit a second felony while you commit the first felony, that escalates it to the second level. Or they could actually just convict you of a violation of that felony, which is the minimum sentence for that's 5 years, and the maximum is 20. And then there's like the list of things that they have that they've done here, that they've engaged in obstructing this activity and trying to obstruct this activity is 6 items long, the list that I found. Right? And all of them carry those kinds of heavy penalties. The penalties get worse as you go down the list. So yeah, it's there could be arrests, and they could, if the government, the current administration, really wanted to shut this down, if they really want to do something about this, and they really want to protect their workers who are engaging in lawful actions, all they have to do is get their hands on some people who can be proved to have engaged in these acts. And I believe this signal chat constitutes at least a conspiracy to commit the first two. The first two things that I read there. And we're talking several people who could be in very deep shit. They don't even have to have engaged in any kind of violence. All they have to do is plan it out. Conspiracy to commit a crime could be considered just as bad as committing the crime itself. And it is one way that the state uses when you have one group of people that's organizing the individuals who do the assaults and the interference and obstruction, that they've used all these other people, and then they think they're going to get away with it. Well, if they get convicted of a conspiracy to commit these crimes, engaging in a conspiracy to commit these crimes, then no, they won't get away with it. And that's what really needs to happen. It's what they tried to do falsely to the Trump administration, but it's what the Democrats have actually engaged in. And if we don't want this kind of thing to be the way politics is done in the U.S., if we don't want bricks through store windows and government officials getting the shit beat out of them, people trying to shoot them or hit them with cars or throw rocks and bricks and frozen water bottles at them, then it's time to start prosecuting the people that are doing that. And I don't care if they're college students that people think don't know any better. If you're 18 years old and you drive drunk and you hit somebody with your car and that person dies, you get convicted of the same crime that you would be convicted of if you were 55 and driving drunk and hit somebody. You would get the same punishment. And you might get the same treatment from your whole community, depending on how well that person was known and how small that community is. And I've heard of people having to move because they've made a stupid mistake on prom night as an 18-year-old high school senior, and never being able to live it down, right? So there is no excuse for this. And the people that are engaging in it really shouldn't be getting a pass just because they have feelings about this subject and it's political. In fact, at this point, their feelings about it, the fact that they are acting on feelings about it, and the fact that it is political is just another reason why they absolutely have to be held accountable for their actions. From the bottom all the way up to the top, every single person involved that gets caught really needs to be charged with every crime that they've committed, and tried for every crime that they've committed, penalized, and their sentences need to not be commuted or otherwise terminated early. It's basically time to legally post a few heads on posts outside the White House, because otherwise American politics is going to be violent forever. And we won't be able to maintain a system that we can trust ever again.
Yeah, I'm kind of amazed that it's taken this long for quote unquote leftists to have finally flown so close to the sun that their wings might finally be, melting. The 20th century, ever since the war, was an exercise in normalizing oikophobia, and they were always pushing on an open door because no one knows what that is. It's been granted the euphemism of communism, and indeed the even more nerfed euphemism of leftism. And yeah, the 20th century saw the long, slow march through the institutions to the point where it's not even called anything anymore, and it's just considered zero normal. This ugly, degenerate, deliberate subversion of your country and its people. The 21st century has been an exercise in exponentially escalating that cultural self-destruction to whatever heights they can get away with. It's no longer a long, slow march. It's a rapid sprint through every institution still left over. And at this point, they're just going, can we get away with this? Holy shit, yes, we can. We're going to tell everyone there's no such thing as prejudice against straight white males, while we push the most blatant, unapologetic policies explicitly against straight white males. We're going to turn women against them. We're going to flood the country with foreigners. We're even going to insist that we can change the sex of humans just by saying so. And on those grounds, we're going to amputate entire body parts of minors. We're going to encourage children from an early age to get their body parts amputated. Wait, have we gone too far? Surely we're not going to get away with this. No one in their right mind would let us get away with this. Oh shit, would you look at that? We're even getting away with this. Is there anything we can't do? This oikophobic travesty we call the left has, for the last few decades, faced the dilemma of a spoiled child, an infinitely spoiled child. It's in their nature to push boundaries and push them and push them and push them until someone finally tells them no. But they've never been told no, not substantially enough. So they just keep pushing those boundaries. What if we ban everyone from leaving their houses and we force insane medical procedures on them? Surely someone's going to stop us. Nope, that's fine too. Just keep on going. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that they think they can overthrow the federal government by misinforming useful idiots into hassling armed agents in the streets. Everything they've done so far, they've got away with. And just like spoiled children, they don't understand that the higher you fly, the further you fall, and the harder you fall. Your devouring mother will let you get away with anything, but at some point, you're going to go out into the real world and you're going to bump into a twitching psycho who's not going to take your shit. You're like a bad-tempered Yorkshire Terrier starting a fight with a pit bull who's been waiting his whole life for this moment. And I'd like to think that's where we are now. I'd like to think it was always inevitable that if they kept pushing their luck, they'd run out of that luck eventually. You actually can't conspire to overthrow the federal government. You will, in fact, find yourself quadruspased with your head on a pig pole if you do that. And this is just me hoping. This is just me praying that we finally reach that point where these bratty fucks will actually get what's finally coming to them. But we've been here before. With all the things I've just described, there's always a libtard judge who will save these spoiled, small, yappy dogs from the jaws of the pit bull every time. And maybe the myth of Icarus is just that, a myth. Maybe these fuckers will actually fly all the way to the sun, and then they will destroy the sun. They will bring about the eternity of Orwellian darkness. I don't fucking know. I try not to black pill people, but every time I try to white pill people, every time I express a modicum of hope and optimism, it gets dashed on the rocks. So I don't know what to predict anymore. I don't know how to predict anything. So I'm just going to sit here and bark at the moon, hopefully in an entertaining way. Maybe we're doomed. Maybe we're not doomed. Either way, we might as well enjoy ourselves as best we can. And that's why I drink. And that's why you should drink too. Yes, this is doctor's advice. Do with it as you will. And I hope you can read my handwriting.
All I'll say is that we don't have to white pill people to not black pill people. We can just tell them to like stay steady. Don't let them turn you into a nihilist. But that doesn't mean that you have to embrace false hope. Just like, be realistic and pragmatic. And that's it. Just protect yourself if possible. Yeah. I just want to also add about the...
Just this question, how many shades of gray are we talking here?
What?
Do we have a specific number for these shades of gray that we're talking here?
No, I'm not I'm not offering any pills. We already had the red one. That's enough to deal with.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say about a word about the James O'Keefe thing. I have some quotes from the things that we discovered about the Signal chat. This is running here on Cam Higby's X page. He's got lots and lots of information of like the things that they're doing. One of the things that they're doing is they are sending each other, if they like come across a vehicle that's unfamiliar, they will get the license plate and they'll share it with everybody, and they'll track the license plate. So they're, I guess, is you could say, doxing people to some degree, right? And they're also telling each other not to drive SUVs because SUVs are what they're targeting. So if you're in the area and you're not part of ICE, but you're driving an SUV, you will be targeted because you're an outsider. They're telling people to drive different kinds of vehicles, like buying different kinds of vehicles. These are not actually like really low income areas. These are areas where people can buy a car so that they don't get singled out when these people are marching in the streets. But here are some things that James O'Keefe also said. He said, this is according to Eric Doherty, whatever.
Doherty.
Yeah, Doherty, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So when they saw his vehicle, this network immediately ran his license plate and interrogated him, demanding ID, which is when he basically said, I'm press, within seconds. And this is what these are quotes from his video. He says, I've never seen anything like this. Every vehicle downtown, they're able to track, run the plates, confirm who they are, get their identification, like they did in my case. They ran my license plate. We're trying to figure out how they're able to do that, where they have someone on the inside of a rental car company, etc., and communicate with each other about it, because he rented a car to do this. And when I got out of my vehicle, this is like 11:30 in the morning, just after the shooting and before the autonomous zone, within seconds, there were 5 of them standing outside a relatively inconspicuous vehicle, interrogating me, asking to see my identification. So I got to give them credit. I've never seen anything like that in my life. I don't think any of us have ever seen a group of people more organized. And then he also said it's a loose network, and there's government funding too for these people in the Signal chat. Okay, there's NGOs, some of which indirectly get funds from our government, so they're not really NGOs. But like a lot of NGOs get government funding, so NGO is just kind of a lie of a term because it means non-governmental. But anyway, but the people actually really believe in their cause. Like these people are true believers. And it's a cause that it appears to me that they're willing to live and die for, which is, I think, more terrifying than one guy funding them in a transactional way. So just like adding a little bit more to this story, because I think it's important to note. So,
well, it is, especially the running license plate thing is a little creepy, because that is something you can't just, not everybody can do that. You have to have access to, you have to have official authorization and access to a certain set of systems in order to do that. And you're supposed to have certain legitimate legal reasons, like, you're an officer and you pulled them over, or you're a private investigator and you're investigating on someone's behalf and have gotten leave. There's certain things you have to have in place. You can't just randomly get online and find out who owns a vehicle based on their license number. At least you're not supposed to be able to. And if you do that, if you're capable of doing that and you do it without a legitimate legal reason, you're actually violating the Driver's Privacy Protection Act. It goes back to 1994, and it is a protection of the privacy of personal information in motor vehicle records. And it is a criminal violation and a civil violation. So if they find out who's doing this without a legit legal reason for doing it, that person can again get into legal trouble. But also everybody whose license that they've run can actually sue them and possibly get damages. And you don't have to have had very much expense to do that. It can be at least $2,500 per violation. So I hope they catch who did that. And I hope everyone whose license has been run is notified. And I hope that there's a class action suit against the entity that did it. Because there could be. It's a possibility. It's a thing that could be done.
All right. I got a super chow, and we're gonna let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. We're gonna read the super chow and then move on. So, but this is still ongoing, and again, it is like there is a thing with women. They're just drawn to this stuff. They basically treat these, I don't know, people like their kids or something. But anyway, Meredith G gives us $5. Thank you, Meredith, and says, HBR News 537, honey for the Badgers. Yes, Hannah is correct. If you are the top prosecutor for the state, you are Attorney General. AG oftentimes stands for aspiring governor. City level top prosecutors are district attorneys. The tragedy of the second shooting is that protesters are convinced that putting their lives at risk and dying is just a thing, and Kristi Noem was warned this was a problem and that ICE raids should avoid blue state strongholds and focus on prosecuting the NGOs and other actors in the state who are complicit in the activities. But no, she had to put agents at risk. Tom Homan didn't want these operations where protests were going to happen, but he was overruled by his incompetent female boss.
Yeah, and there are now people dead because of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, AGs often do end up running for governor. In fact, the current governor of Ohio was our AG before he was governor. He has been a county prosecutor. He has been a senator at the state level. He has been a lieutenant governor. He's been a senator at the federal level, and he has been the attorney general, and now he's the governor. So he's been a career politician, but and that happens with a lot of these guys that are in state or higher level positions.
Mm-hmm.
That they're career politicians, and I have actually worked with him in the past. We did photography for his ice cream socials for years. My family did. But, and so I know that he has a certain specific set of values. I don't agree with him on everything. But there are some things that I very strongly agree with him on. And that's why he's been a career politician, has been he did his own long march through the institutions. But that's pretty standard. Like if you look at any big name in politics, it's incredibly rare for somebody to come out of nowhere and then become a federal senator and then run for president after a few terms like Obama did and win. Like he's the only person that could do that in a modern setting. And for the most part, you would see somebody like Mike DeWine that they work in every area of state government they can, and some areas of federal government, become a governor. I don't know if he'd ever run for president, but it's always possible, and that's essentially how politics in America works for the most part. But in terms of Kristi Noem and her orders and everything, it is true. She should not have sent them into the blue states like this. This was to cause conflict, and it did. They played right into her hand in terms of bad behavior. The big question is, does a woman in office have the balls to uphold the law now that we know who is breaking it? Because otherwise, she did all that for nothing. She overrode the man who was correct for nothing. If she doesn't have a long game in doing this, then she was just being belligerent and bitchy. And that's one of the reasons why we shouldn't have women in these positions. So if she's not taking this opportunity to start making sure that everyone involved in this SignalGate and the people that they have persuaded to attack ICE agents are prosecuted, if she's not doing that, then all of this was just an exercise in being a girl boss, which essentially means being bossy and pushy and bitchy. It does not mean the same thing as being a leader. And it'll become pretty obvious if she fails at this. But it won't be a big surprise.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Meredith. I also wanted to let you all know that all this information was uploaded to a Proton drive in case it gets taken down, so it's been archived. Here's a copy of it. You can look at all of their campaigns and where they're getting their money from and CSV files and stuff. So if you want that, I'll put it in the Discord. You have to go into the Discord to look at it. I might send it to Hannah. Maybe you want to cover it on a show or something at some point.
Yeah.
There's another thing is one of these websites that's involved with this is called Chuffed, and it's a social justice website. And, not that we don't know that this is the case, but if you look here, there are featured movements. We have Palestine, climate, animals, First Nations, Sudan. I didn't know that was a new thing. Workers' rights, abolish ICE, trans rights. 13 more. What else we got? Health and medical, social welfare, development, enterprise, environment, schools, women and girls, sports, LGBTIQ, volunteers, politics, community. What's missing? So is there anything missing from this list of various causes? I wonder what they're not covering. But yeah, again, not surprising, just the usual, stuff. But let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. We're going to move on to the next story.
Really quick.
Yeah.
Really quick. David Lowboy says it's Bondi, which will have to do the prosecuting, and it seems equally useless. Yes, because that's another woman. So my point, I rest my case, But the other
Point
thing
still
is, Noam
stands.
could be communicating with her and saying, "You've got to do something about this. This, you can see the violence that's taking place. You can see the death that is happening. You can see the chaos in the streets. Here are the people who are violating these laws. We need prosecutions." And then it's on Bondi whether she says yes or no. But if Noam isn't pushing for full on prosecution as a result of this, then again, it's just a woman being bitchy. You said not to go in
Mm-hmm.
there. Well, damn it, I'm going to go in there. I swear I want to make a horror film, where all of the people who are victims of the scary monster get killed because they're women who get mad when someone tells them, "Don't go in there. There's a monster in there." And I do what I want. You can't tell me what to do. And then they go in there and they get ripped to shreds. Because that's essentially life. That's women in a nutshell.
Yep. Okay, so let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I look forward to your thoughts. We're going to move on to the next story. So we have a breakthrough. Well, it's potential breakthrough in science, something that's being worked on. So scientists at Oregon Health and Science University, led by Shokrat Mitalipov, announced a significant breakthrough in late September of last year. They successfully created functional, fertilizable human eggs using DNA from adult skin cells. This process builds on somatic cell nuclear transfer, similar to the cloning technique used for Dolly the sheep. Researchers removed the nucleus from a donor egg, replaced it with the nucleus from a skin cell containing the full set of 46 chromosomes, and developed a new cell division method called mitomeiosis to reduce the chromosomes to the correct 23 needed for fertilization. They produced 82 such egg-like cells, which were then fertilized with sperm via IVF. Some developed into early embryos, reaching the blastocyst stage, which is about 6 days old, or 6 days in gestation, though efficiency was low. Only about 9% succeeded. Many showed chromosomal abnormalities, and none were cultured beyond 6 days per ethical guidelines. As of January 2026, there are no new major developments or follow-up studies reported beyond the original proof of concept publication in Nature Communications. This work remains in the early lab stage, with experts estimating at least a decade of refinement, safety testing, and regulatory/ethical reviews before any potential clinical trials. Challenges include improving chromosome accuracy, boosting success rates, and addressing ethical concerns around designer reproduction or scenarios like same-sex male couples having genetically related children. Discussions on platforms like X continue to highlight the implications for infertility treatment, parenthood definitions, and future reproductive technology, but no breakthroughs in human applications have emerged since the initial announcement. I just wanted to say for this, I'm not for this. I don't think this is good. I know a lot of people talk about artificial wombs and all that. I think it's generally not good in my opinion. But I'm not telling people how to live their life or anything. But I do want to say that I think this is essentially the end point of female liberation. The end point of this is not something that is happening because men want it. This is something that's happening because women are basically more and more asking to be liberated from essentially their biology, the biology of gestating babies and life. And they want something like this. Now, the fact that this was going on in the Pacific Northwest suggests also that there could have been other interests. Like, for example, there are a lot of trans women that want to be able to carry babies, and that this is another thing that could be a factor. But I think that they're such a small, proportion of the population that this is, I think this is essentially the logical end point of female liberation. That's where, or at least a point. It's not even necessarily the end, but it's a destination, a singularity that female liberation points us towards. This isn't to say this is what all women want. I'm talking about the ideology itself. So I think that it's just something that is interesting. Now, women will probably oppose this if it becomes viable and men start to use it, but I don't think it was essentially put into practice with men in mind. So
Something
anyway.
something that I got to say about this, because this really, okay, I understand there are people that want this, and I understand that their research goes where the funding is, and probably more rich people want this than want what the other applications of this are. But this pisses me off in the same way that learning about adult stem cell successes pisses me off. Right? For years, part of the abortion argument was that you can get embryonic stem cells without creating embryos to destroy them if you just can use the stem cells from aborted embryos. And I think it was George Bush Sr., it might have been George Bush Jr., but it was one of the Bushes who outlawed that, made it so you couldn't just take stem cells from every aborted fetus and use them for whatever research purposes and so on. And that, in fact, I think he made it so that you couldn't create new sets of stem cells to do that with, embryonic stem cells. And then you find out later, all this argument that it's important to be able to do that because MS can't be cured and cancer can't be cured, and name a illness that's either genetic or caused by dysfunction in human cell reproduction. Can't be cured without embryonic stem cell research. Suddenly, all of the other methods that they've been using. So it was W. Zirank says it was W. So that was Senior. I think I got that right. No, that was Junior. Anyway, you can't do any of the other elements of research because we've shut this one off. We're gonna have a temper tantrum as a scientific community and not cure anything. Fuck you guys, you can all die. And that went on for decades. Right? That's gone on for a long time. 2 decades. And people have died waiting for research to be done on their particular ailment that was killing them. They've died waiting for treatments to become affordable. There are stem cell treatments, for instance, for kidney failure. But if you're not exceptionally wealthy, you can't get it done. Your insurance company probably won't cover it, but you can get it if you pay independently in the United States, because they don't want people receiving medical care if we're not going to allow them to use aborted fetuses to make it happen. And if they can make advancements like this, where they can create an entire donor egg, can create an entire human from a donor egg and the nucleus from a skin cell. If they're capable of doing that, they are capable of all of the advancements that they've declined to make in the last 20 to 30 years because they're mad about embryonic stem cells. And we know that they can take your stem cells from cartilage in your ankle or your nose, your heel or your nose, your ear, and actually use them in the manner that we were told they needed embryonic stem cells for. Now we know that they actually can create human life doing this. They could be growing organs for people who need donor organs. They could grow them from your own tissue, and they're not choosing to use that to help people. They could be repairing organs that have failed or are damaged. They could be repairing hearts. They could be repairing kidneys. They could be repairing livers. people who are dying from cancers of organs that you can't survive without solid function, like liver or lung or pancreatic cancer, things like that. They're not using this type of research. They're not using their capabilities to make medical care for people available in those areas. Instead, they're trying to make it so that trans women can have babies. And I do care about the gender issue in this. It's just not that far up on my list in comparison to helping people not die before their time. Right? And there's all kinds of other things, that I could be talking about with regard to this. There are advancements that have been made that I have read about. We always have, they just said on the news last night, in fact, that there's a shortage of blood donors right now. They could make it so that we don't need blood donors. But they're not doing that. They're doing this. They could make it so that we don't need organ donors, but they're not doing that. They're doing this. Right? They could make it so that degenerative birth defects that start out not so bad and then kill you in 4 or 5 years don't do that anymore. But they're not. They're doing this. Like, I wish I could say I hope they're proud, but I don't. I hope they end up embarrassed as fuck. At least the company that is trying to figure out how to regrow foreskin for men is working on something that they have said they know will have multiple applications, including regrowing skin for burn victims. That it won't just be one thing, that it'll be across the board. There will be all kinds of things that they can do for people because of that. These guys don't seem to care about that. And that's sad. And I wonder, are they getting funded by federal money? Is your tax money going into this? And then they're not doing anything for you? And if you have kidney failure, you're just shit out of luck? Or are they getting privately funded? And Zombie Cartman, not yet, but they're getting closer. They're in, the last I saw, they were in animal trials and they were preparing for human trials. So this is a thing that is going to happen. And they will be able to regrow foreskin once that research is done. The company is called Foragen. And but it'll also be able to regrow your skin if you get burned, or if you're in an accident, like on a motorcycle, and you lose a lot of skin from that. It's got a lot of applications. So it's really going to be very valuable research. And it'll be valuable in multiple ways. So you can look forward to that. That one is up and coming, pun intended, research. And the other one is Plan A, that's supposed to be happening this year, I think, which is male birth control. And it is it's not a hormonal thing. It's not going to interfere with your hormones. It's not going to interfere with your any of your bodily functions in any way that makes, puts chemicals through your system. It's a polymer that goes into the vas deferens that shreds the sperm. It doesn't even force you to reabsorb the sperm like a vasectomy does. And it can essentially be dissolved using another. It's an injected polymer into the vas deferens. It lasts 10 years, and it can be dissolved using another injection. And so it's another up and coming bit of research that's going to pan out for men. And I think that once that happens, it won't matter what women come up with. They're really they can make all the eggs they want, but if they can't go more than, yes, it's called Vasogel, Plum Daddy, that's correct. But they won't be able to use this to gain independence, because most of them depend on what they depend on when they become single moms is getting child support from the father of the baby. So they're not going to want this, and this is not going to end up making a whole lot of money. But I think those two other things will, and I think those are much better.
All right, Mike, do you have any thoughts on this?
I do. Again, I don't want to toy with optimism too much, not just because I don't want to plunge myself into yet another pit of disappointment, but because I don't want to lead anyone else astray with any false sense of security. This story seems to be a breakthrough. This seems like if it comes to fruition, we could theoretically maintain the human race without women, without having to give a shit about women or their increasingly unsustainable demands. This might mean we could have the Warhammer 40,000 future, where we don't even have to bother arguing about the 19th Amendment. We could just make women obsolete altogether. But like I said, we've spent the past century dreaming of making communism obsolete. I mean, it always has been obsolete from its inception because it's a fucking stupid idea. But the problem is communists and feminists are extremely ruthless. As long as we exist in this decadence afforded to us by labor-saving technology, there will always be bored housewives who create imaginary problems out of nothing because they can't live without problems. And they will pursue those imaginary problems to the ends of the earth because it's all they have. It's the only thing that keeps them going. We're not going to get rid of this misandric oikophobia until society has retrograded back to the Stone Age, where we have no choice but to put men in charge, otherwise we'll all die. And so the cycle continues of empires falling and rising. There is no way in hell that feminists are going to allow this asexual reproduction to exist. Because if it does, it will represent the unthinkable. In the event that such technology exists, men will have a right to access it. We've seen what happens when men want rights, especially rights to something that doesn't necessarily involve women. Our feminist-led governments don't even want us to have fucking video games that aren't tailored specifically to women's wants and needs. Do you think they'll ever let us have access to reproductive options that aren't tailored specifically to women's wants and needs? If you thought Gamergate was something of a kerfuffle, wait till you see Egggate. It's got 3 G's in a row. 3! Once Egggate rears its ugly head, you'll never hear about ICE again. The femi-communists will turn away from all those secondary and tertiary distractions, and they will land right back where they were in 2014, focusing every particle of their energy on bringing down men's rights. Imagine men's right to exist without women. Not just in the lifetime of an individual male, but men's right to exist in a community where they can reproduce indefinitely without women. That will be the catalyst that combines men's rights and MGTOW. That will be a new horizon. It'll be men's rights going their own way. It will be unstoppable if it's allowed to happen. And so the feminists who run our government will not allow it to happen. They will ensure that it is stoppable. Pickup artists won't like it either, because they'll be out of a job. Imagine a world where men don't have to simp for women. They can perpetuate the species by themselves. Women will have to simp for men. They'll have to make it worth our while. Imagine that. A world where women can't just be the table. There would be no Andrew Tate. Or at least our schools would have to shut the fuck up about him. And they'd have to teach girls that if they want a place in the future of the human race, maybe they should try not being complete and utter cunts. Again, I don't know if it's going to happen. As long as we're being ruled by feminists, it's not going to happen. They'll do everything they can to bury it, just like they've done everything they can to bury male contraceptives over the years. But it's much like the commies flying too close to the sun. I don't know how insane they can go before they get mauled by a pit bull. I don't know if there's any limit. I don't know what lies at the end of the rainbow. It could be utopia. It could be a dystopia. Or maybe it's neither. Maybe there is no end of the rainbow. I mean, there literally isn't. A rainbow is a circle. It has no end. I would hope that the future is neither utopian nor dystopian. It ought to be a series of compromises where we do the best with what we've got. I would like a future where men and women both exist and they get along with each other, like we have for all of history. But something's got to give. Something in the current paradigm has to get the fuck out of the way, and it's got to be this fucking femi-communism. Misandric oikophobia, to give it its non-euphemistic name. The future will never be perfect, but we can keep steering the car in the general direction of the road, as long as we can stop this insane purple-haired bitch in the passenger seat from grabbing the steering wheel and veering us off to the left. I mean, a boy can dream, and I will dream. And yeah, fuck Amelia. Not literally, she's 17, but proverbially, fuck her, you bunch of thirsty simps.
All right. Thank you for that. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I did get a super chow from Zaranx. Thank you, Zaranx. He gave us $5 and says, when Project Veritas was under O'Keefe's control, I think they revealed that there was DSA members in government who could get addresses, hence Mitch McConnell's house being visited by leftists. Yeah, I think that it's clear that they work with people in government, obviously, and those people are well connected. So yes, that's why I think
they can get
that
the information.
Yeah.
But it's only legal to snoop for that information under certain conditions. And if those conditions are not met and they're in violation and they do that a bunch of times, they still can be prosecuted and penalized for that, and they still can be sued for it. That's why I'm hoping that the doxers get doxed in that instance, and it becomes public information exactly who was doing that, because I would love to see everybody that got their license plate run by that individual or group to go back and just class action lawsuit the shit out of them.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Zaranx. Okay. We're going to move on to the next story. So this one I found thanks to James Nuzzo. James Nuzzo was a guest on a Fireside Chat a while back. He does a lot of research into UN funding and things like this. And women are getting another day, guys. They get another day, of course. So let's take a look at it really quick.
How long is it going to take for him to bitch about it?
Yeah. So International Day of Women in Multilateralism. The International Day of Women in Multilateralism is observed every year on January 25th, which was 2 days ago, having been established by UNESCO's General Conference through Resolution 41C57 on November 23rd, 2021. This day recognizes the essential contributions of women to the multilateral system. What is that? Particularly in advancing human rights, peace, sustainable development, and global governance. It highlights the historical and ongoing roles of women in shaping international cooperation while advocating for greater gender equality in multilateral institutions, such as increased representation in decision-making positions and the integration of gender transformative policies that ensure multilateralism benefits women and girls worldwide. The observance serves as a platform to address persistent challenges, including underrepresentation of women in key multilateral roles, and to inspire future generations through intergenerational dialogues and focused themes. For example, past editions have tackled online gendered disinformation, hate speech, climate action via women in science, and the future of multilateralism. It complements related UN days like the International Day of Women in Diplomacy, yes, that's a thing too, but specifically emphasizes women's impact within broader multilateral frameworks like the United Nations, UNESCO, and other global bodies. Events often include panels, commitments to gender equality, and calls for action to build more inclusive international systems. And James Nuzzo shared this image with us, and I'll make my comments about this brief, because I think this is an important point to make. So this is him saying, sounds like the UN is considering adding another day to its list of days, observances for girls and women. And here's like the United Nations Days of Observance for Women and Men. Women have 13 different days. You notice how also like the LGBTQ groups have multiple days. There's like the Coming Out Day and Trans Awareness Day and Trans Sacrifice Day, etc. The women get the most days, obviously. But the reason for this has nothing to do with honoring women. The reason for this is to create a distinction between women and men, full stop. It's to position women as uniquely politically oppressed, uniquely in need of recognition, uniquely in need of some support and advocacy, even though nobody really benefits. They spend a bunch of money, they have conferences, they have talks, they do like announcements, they post online, social media, but every little one of these things nudges women more and more towards radicalizing them against men, period. Like that's why it exists. And this is why they don't give anything to men. First of all, men don't want days. Like it doesn't do anything for us. But women, they seem to really eat this shit up. So they do this, but they're going to keep doing this. So the United Nations and all these like globalist organizations, they have no interest in human rights. They only exist to create a constant bombardment of divisive, let's say, I don't want to say rhetoric, but like these divisive statements or divisive like proclamations that exist specifically to keep women in a state of anxiety about like, because if you keep hearing about you getting another special day because of your unique victimhood, then it's going to affect them. And it also is created or is done specifically to further socialize, like, and when I say socialize, I don't mean like going out and meeting people. I mean like creating a socialist way of viewing relationships by pushing that on women as a group, treating them like a collective all the time, treating them like a group all the time. It's like reinforcing the sisterhood all the time. That's why they do this stuff. So they have another day. It doesn't even mean anything. Like when you think about it, it's literally a day for women who advocate for global homo gay race communism. That's what it is. That's what it is. Yep. It's and if you do that, then you're the right kind of woman because those women get a day. And if you're not doing that, then you don't get a day. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, yeah. I leave it to you guys.
It's specifically for female bureaucrats too. That's another thing. People don't realize like UNESCO is it stands for United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and it makes it sound all hoity-toity official, like this is very important stuff we're working on, guys. But it is essentially just an international bureaucracy to interfere with various cultures' methods of doing these things. So your local education system is now going to be interfered with by this world government bureaucracy. your scientific community is now going to be pressured to follow the belief systems that are espoused by this world government bureaucracy. And by the way, your culture is going to be under pressure to change based on the belief systems of this world government bureaucracy. And so this day, this International Day of Women in Multilateralism, is actually just the International Day for female world government bureaucrats who put pressure on various nations around the world to abandon their long-standing cultures to participate in, like Brian said, this gay communism, this fake gay communism. It's clowns. This is an International Female Clown Day for bureaucrats, and that's all it is. And women will be all pandered to by it, and they'll think that this is something great, and they're being seen and recognized and blah blah blah. But in reality, it's about giving women more control through this systemic exercise of pressure over cultures all over the world. And it's also about money laundering. Almost everything that you see that is for women, where you're told that women are getting the short end of the stick and we're going to fix that, it's the bigger the organization doing it, the more money laundering is involved. And so they get these people that want to make a lot of money doing absolutely nothing, but they want to have some political influence, and they want to take money from wealthy people, and because they have that political influence, they can get it. So they organize conferences and board meetings and so on, right? They organize marches and other bullshit, and they get paid big bucks to be administrators of these organizations that are doing this. They don't actually do anything for women. They might change the language of some laws or some various policies, the way that nations describe things they are doing and so on. But when it comes to the practical application, they're not benefiting women at all, but they are harming men in a lot of ways, and they get big bucks for it. And then they turn around and complain more. We need another day. It'll become some dipshit thing like International Day of Women in World Government Multiculturalist Efforts or something. They'll start having it longer and longer in the name, and more and more specificity. And International Day for women who cut their fingernails short. International Day for women without freckles. International Day for women who did their hair straight this morning. Like it'll get more and more bullshitty, and there will be more and more reasons why they need your money to support these organizations and these international days and the efforts that they're made to highlight. And they'll have less and less reasons why you should fund them. And they'll be more and more likely to use, "Oh, you're a misogynist," if you argue against it. It's good that we stopped funding many of the UN organizations, and I hope that the Trump administration continues removing funding as best it can from the UN and everything connected with it, because all of this is that grade of bullshit where you're being lied to first about what the initiative is about, and also about any need for the initiative, also about what the initiative is supposed to accomplish and what it actually is accomplishing and where the money is going. And in the meantime, you're being demonized in the course of promoting it. We don't need to celebrate bureaucrats. We need to give them term limits and eventually eliminate their jobs. This is disgusting.
Yeah. The general war cry of the political feminist is, look what men have done to the world. Men have been in charge for X amount of time, and look how terrible everything is. And I'm like, compared to what? You all seem to be insisting that men have always been in charge throughout all of human history. Has everything got worse in the period of all of human history? I mean, in the Stone Age, people would get eaten by saber-toothed cats and they'd die from a multitude of incurable diseases. So what did men do? Well, they started by killing all of the saber-toothed cats. You're welcome. Are you pleased about that? No, you appear to be complaining about all the various species that men are killing so as to keep you safe. Also, men have made leaps and bounds in curing this multitude of once incurable diseases. Are you grateful for any of that? No, you're complaining that the world is overpopulated with humans who are no longer dying from these diseases. Well, arguably it is overpopulated, but you're sure as fuck not going to fix that problem by siphoning endless hordes of people from the human factories in the third world to the first world countries whose native populations would otherwise be in decline. This problem has only got worse in the past century, by the way. All manner of problems have only got worse in the past century. What happened a century ago? We agreed to put women in charge in terms of voting and in terms of the people they're voting for. So if anything's got worse in the last century, you have all your work ahead of you to convince us that it's somehow men's fault. If we are to agree that men have always been in charge up until the 20th century, and I don't agree, by the way, men have been in charge of tribes and countries, but women have been in charge of children and the men and women those children become. As such, I think men and women can go ahead and pat themselves on the back for how much our quality of life has improved from the Stone Age until the modern age. Yes, there have been wars all the way back to ancient times, but the face that launched a thousand ships was named Helen of Troy. The thousands of people who died in that war were all men. That doesn't appear to have changed in the past century when we gave women the executive power to launch 1,000 ships. Margaret Thatcher did it a bunch of times, and that's okay. Sometimes it's a reasonable thing to do to defend your territory. Angela Merkel didn't launch 1,000 ships because she wasn't allowed to, but she did continue the conquering of Europe under the auspices of the EU. And now, if a war sparks up between Russia and Ukraine, we have to fund both sides of that war, whether we like it or not. We could argue about what might have happened if Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris were ever in charge of the United States. And I guess that leaves us speculating. What exactly was so crap about the world before women were in charge? And how the fuck has the world got in any way better since they were put at least partially in charge? Technology has sure as fuck got better, but that's not thanks to women. Women don't invent shit when it comes to technology. They don't invent shit when it comes to anything. All we can do is give them political power. What exactly has improved politically since we did that? As far as I can tell, national and international politics have been the things that have only got worse and worse in the century since women were given political power. We're living in Orwell's nightmare, aren't we? Orwell predicted it in 1948 because it was already happening, and now it's happening par excellence. The world is being disarmed and infantilized and tyrannized and arrested for saying hurty words. Please explain to me how the fuck that is an improvement. I'll wait. I will continue to wait. So, please, someone else talk while I...
Okay. Yes. While we're waiting, we're going to move on to the next story. Let's see if we can get through this and not have a decent sized sausage. So let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. All really good points all around. Yes, the UN needs to go. We need to legally and financially and administratively crush them. So like peacefully, but absolutely. And I think that a lot of people are waking up to that. What people used to think of as a general good is we're realizing it's just not. All right. So next story. I'll use this as the image, but it's not quite right. So I just thought this was really interesting. Again, this is sort of like another one of these things. It's like the end point of female liberation is almost like the end point of the liberation of gender itself, in a way. I mean, not for men. That let's get that straight. But in general, so like, all right. You might have heard of this movie called The Matrix. And in The Matrix, it was directed by two brothers who were at the time brothers. And after that, they suddenly transitioned. I mean, like, it was kind of inexplicable, but they both did at the same time. And just a strange thing, but it's true. So Lily Wachowski, formerly known as Andy Wachowski, and one half of the former Wachowski brothers, the same ones who brought us the good Matrix movie, the good one, the first one, is set to produce a reimagining of the Stepford Wives. So if you guys don't know, the Stepford Wives was a kind of dystopian science fiction movie that came out in I think it was the 60s and or the 70s, and it was basically supposed to portray like housewives that are, good to their children, love their husbands, and serve them and all that, as basically like artificial human beings that were robots that were programmed to serve men. And it was a feminist kind of anthem, right? And the film,
Yeah, in fact, it was made to portray husbands as abusive enough to have their wives essentially killed and replaced by robots.
Yes.
Or androids.
Yes, and the thing is too about this movie, Stepford Wives, it was not successful in the theaters. It did not make money. It flopped because feminism at the time was still really unpopular, even with women. But it became like let's say like a mental virus that sort of stuck around. And so like the concept of the Stepford wife, even in a movie that really people didn't really watch, and it was not very well received, but everyone knows what a Stepford wife is. It's basically like what they would call today a pick-me or a handmaiden of the patriarchy or something like that, right? So the Stepford Wives themselves were essentially, like I said, these androids that were substitute women. And it was a feminist movie, intentionally. And they're going to remake it, but they're doing it with a twist. This solo project is called Dolls, and it will feature a cast, director, and producer that are all transgender. Wachowski states that he's so proud to be part of this beautiful, weird, striking debut. There is no release yet for this stunning and brave film, but I think it's really interesting that they're doing a remake of Stepford Wives with trans women, like an all trans cast. I mean, so it's just weird because it's like this is the end state of women's liberation. Like it's and the thing is too, how are feminists going to feel about this? Like, I think they're going to be very upset because the Stepford Wives was their movie, even though no one watched it. And they made a remake of it too, which I don't think anyone watched. Although, again, the sentiment behind it, the message is actually everywhere. And it's more impactful than the film itself. It's in the consciousness. It's in the zeitgeist, right? And so you have this person who I would assume is probably a feminist. I'm going to put it out there. I'm guessing the Wachowskis, they're both trans and all that. that they're feminists, and yet they're going to co-opt this movie and make it about trans women, trans everything actually. Like everyone in it's going to be trans, apparently. So it should be interesting. It's a short film, probably because they couldn't find that many qualified trans actors. Yeah, this is sort of what I would have ended on. I just think it's interesting as a commentary on where the culture is going. But anyway, I there is some other things we could get into. Mike J, who did the write up for this, he kept it really short, but he did mention that we could talk about some more stuff relating to how did the Wachowskis, how is it that they both transitioned after The Matrix. And it's interesting because there is an interesting story behind it, which they admitted to, or at least one of them, Andy or Lily Wachowski. But we can talk about that in the patron show. So I don't know if you guys want to give your thoughts on this. I think it's hilarious. There you go.
It might be a pretty good movie. Yeah, no, whatever. You could do what you like with your own movie, at least in theory. I mean, it would be nice if anyone could cast and staff their entire movie with straight white males in the event that they happen to be the most qualified candidates. John Carpenter's The Thing was an entirely male cast, and it was great. I'm struggling to think of any movie that's entirely female cast, let alone entirely female staffed. I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but whatever they are, they obviously didn't get very far. And to be fair, this doesn't count either. It looks like the closest you can get to an all-female production team is to pretend that all the men are women. I'm sure there are some FTMs in there somewhere, but at the end of the day, FTMs are just women, so they suck at their jobs too. Lol. But like I said, fine, whatever. It's your movie. If you want to restrict the talent pool to less than 1% of the population, bully for you. Fill your boots, mate. We'll see what happens. We'll see if you come up with a banger, or we'll see if everyone gets hormonal and emotional and catty and they all end up tearing each other's eyes out. I hope you film that, by the way. Even if the movie doesn't get made in the end, the behind-the-scenes footage will... Yeah, even if the movie doesn't get made in the end, the behind-the-scenes footage will be gold from start to finish. Maybe someone will make a movie about how hilariously terrible y'all are at making movies. Like Ed Wood or The Disaster Artist. I have high hopes. And I have popcorn.
Get the guys that did Spinal Tap to do it. I think that'd be great.
That was Rob Reiner. It was Rob Reiner who made.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Too soon. Okay.
You could get the makers of the 2004 remake, directed by Frank Oz, that was sort of like almost a parody of the original. See, that's the thing. The original was campy and stupid to a degree that while it was not a popular theater movie, there's a degree to which it became useful as a pseudo cult classic. Not because anything in it was really believable, but because it said a lot about the writer who wrote it. The movie itself, the original Stepford Wives movie, the plot line of that movie was that there was a community where all of the husbands had this conspiracy to make their lives easier by replacing their wives with exact replica robots that sort of had the wife's original personality, except if she was on a behavioral leash that, she couldn't argue back against him. She would be the perfect wife and mother. She would support the advancement of his career and so on. Like all the things that feminists hate when women do it in real life. And of course, the idea was that you couldn't find a female partner that would be on the same page as you are, that you would be happy with, that you wouldn't want to kill and replace with a bot. So feminists essentially communicated that women are so bad at marriage that their husband's only solution was to kill them and make bots out of the parts of them that they liked, essentially, and discard the parts they don't like. And I think people laughed at it from the beginning. It was an unintentional self-parody, as Murder of Crows has pointed out, but it did take itself seriously, and the people involved um, took it seriously. Feminists took it seriously, and it was supposed to be a terrifying horror film and not a comedy originally. And then they followed it up. It came out in like 75, and I remember seeing it when I was homesick from school sometime in junior high, which is like 10 years later. And then a couple of years after that, there was another movie that came out, The Stepford Children, where the same men's association from the Stepford Wives, and it is an association. They like are all in business together and everything. And if you want to be part of this, you have to do that to your wife. They do the same thing to their children. And it's the teens go from being normal teens that push back now and then and have their own interests and so on, to these, robot kids. And the guy that brings his kids back in that one doesn't do it right away, and his kids show up at the prom with like a boombox playing rock and roll and stuff, and the rest of them are all doing ballroom dancing. And as soon as the non-changed kids walk in, the other kids all literally start short-circuiting. They start not knowing how to dance, and you can almost see sparks coming out of them. I can't remember if there were actual sparks or not. But in both of those two like bits of continuity in the various Stepford Wives movies, there was a common link, and that was there was a villain, there was a bad guy, and the bad guy was the husbands. So men were the bad guys in those movies. Biological men were the bad guys in those movies. And in the other movies that have been made, Revenge of the Stepford Wives, and the 2004 version, that retained that continuity. It still was women against men. Men were the bad guys, and the female reporter in the 1980s Revenge of the Stepford Wives, and the women in the 2004 Stepford Wives movies, they were either victims or heroines, depending on how they came out of it. And then there was a gender reverse to See If It Made a Point to Men in 1996 that also came out. And it was also shit. Like every single one of these movies has been shit, right? They've been campy, B quality, the kind of movies. Like I watch that kind of movie, but usually I like that kind of movie. And these are good meme worthy movies, but not movies that you would like, because the story sucks and the characters aren't believable, and so on, right? Who are they going to make the villains in this movie? If this is an all trans cast, who's going to be the bad guy? Who's going to be the one bringing them back to a community to turn them into bots that behave
The white
nicely
ones?
or appropriately? Like that, it's a really serious question, because if they're all
The
trans,
butch ones.
who's going to be the villain in the movie? I'm not quite sure that's
I
going
don't
to
know.
work.
That's a good question. I think that they might do progressive stack stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing, or they might not do the villain aspect. They might
Yeah, it might
say if it's
there might not be a villain aspect, but that's yeah, it's a good question. How are
it's
you going to
kind of
send
like,
your message if
oh,
everybody is on the oppression in the oppression
yeah,
Olympics and they're all in the same position?
position. It'd be like if they said we're going to do a movie about the Indianapolis 500, but actually they just played some footage of traffic on Interstate 75 going between, Canada and Florida. And
Yeah.
and was like, yeah, sometimes these people pass each other, and sometimes people drive way above the speed limit. Right? It's not the same story. And I have a feeling that's going to be what happens here. They're not going to be portraying partners as villains. They're not going to be portraying family members as villains. They're going to be portraying society or social norms or people who are not trans. Anybody but the way that the original story portrayed things. And they could have just, without mentioning the Stepford Wives at all, they could have just explored the themes that they've talked about exploring with this movie, which, obviously have to do with gender norms and being dealing with dysphoria and meeting people's expectations and how society has responded. They could have made a movie exploring that without ever mentioning the Stepford Wives. But if they mention the Stepford Wives, they might piss off the TERFs. And if they piss off the TERFs, they'll get a lot of press. And if they get a lot of press, more people might watch the film to find out what the big deal is. And I think that's the real reason why they mentioned Stepford Wives here. I don't think it has anything to do with the original movie. I think this was kind of their way of turning coverage of their movie into an ad.
Trying to create buzz.
And response to their movie into an ad. Trying to create buzz, exactly.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, I got a super chat from Xeranx, who gives us, I think it's 5. I don't know why it's not showing up on here. Let me see. Look. Oh, it's a membership. That's why. And he says, I'm imagining the Wachowskis taking over the Stepford Wives like Loki's reaction to Hulk thumping Thor in Thor Ragnarok. Yes, that's how it feels. I remember when those movies were okay. Okay, so we're going to go now into the patron show and talk about Looks Maxing with Dave Schilling here. And if you guys want to join us for that, you have to become a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com. /subscribe to join us. $5 a month will get you into Discord, where you'll be able to watch all the additional content that we have, particularly all of our patron shows. And if you give it higher levels, you can even be a part of the discussions. There's also a really great community there. Allison currently has a podcast that she does where she talks about movies and books and stuff, and all the people that are in there are patrons. So, maybe you can even just hang out with Allison and talk about nerdy shit. That's something that you can do. We also have game nights and such as well. So please consider joining us at feedthebadger.com /subscribe. All right. So with all that said, thank you, Mike and Hannah, for your input. Always lovely. And thank you guys most of all for watching. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please, please, please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will talk to you guys in the next one. See you next Tuesday. Machines.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.